All right, what we're gonna do is set up a proper plank with the alignment and the engagement, and then move that through some setups for chaturanga. All right, so what Caitlin's gonna do, she's gonna first look down and measure the distance between her feet, 2 fist distance. Okay, that's the width of your actual hips, and this is the width that we want for down dog and plank. She'll now crawl forward into a plank position, stacking shoulders over the wrists. Her hands are about as wide as her shoulders, and I like index fingers. Index fingers are going to point directly forward. Some teachers will say middle fingers, but that's for some people will have their elbow go out. So we want index fingers pointing forward and the arm bones rotated externally so the eyes, the elbows are facing forward. If, like Caitlin, there's a tendency to hyperextend, we want to keep a micro bend, and then she's just activating bicep, tricep, and forearm muscles. From here, this is going to be her plank position. Now we're going to go through all the different cue points. First thing we're going to do is get her shoulder blades to spread, scapula protraction, keeping length in the back of her neck so her head is up a little bit. Now she's going to engage the pecs by squeezing her upper arms towards each other, okay? Simultaneously pulling her palms toward her toes as she drags her heels back. Now we're going to focus on the core. The bottom ribs knit. Ooh, that was a huge difference. And then the tailbone, instead of tucking, because that oftentimes gets people to squeeze their glutes, we're going to pull the pubic bone up, and hip points are going to lift and lengthen. She's pressing away. There's a little bit of scoliosis, and a lot of people have this, so you'll see some slight different variation of the spine. From this, her legs are going to engage quadriceps, legs straight, inner thighs spiraling upward. Takes a deep inhale breath, and from here we're going to have her go into downward facing dog, because this is the proper length, front to back, and width of a downward facing dog. Now, we're going to move her back into her plank position. I'm going to set up some blocks for proper alignment. So this block that I'm going to put here ensures that she stays at 90 degrees with the arm bone perpendicular to the ground. I place this block tall, as you can see, in front of index finger. I'll give her both sides so she has some good support. Reminding her of all the different engagement pieces. Bottom ribs knit, tailbone lengthens down, hip points up, shoulder blades spread. Now, this will ensure that she keeps her elbows where they need to be, 90 degrees. As she exhales, she bends, comes down. We're going to let her rest shoulders here, but she keeps her shoulders pulled back so they're not rounding forward. And then we're going to give her some rest, knees to the mat, and she can come up into cobra pose. Okay? The idea is a 90-degree elbow bend. One of the indicators, you just kind of sit back there, is if the elbows go back behind us, the index finger will lift, the mound of the index finger will come off the ground. So we're looking for 90, 90. Another thing is, Caitlin's going to turn and face the camera, with the arms out in front, if she decides to squeeze her elbows in, and that's a cue that she's been given, you can see what happens to her shoulder. She has this shrugging thing happening and rounding. So we want to keep the arms straight in front, and instead of letting the elbows squeeze in, just trust that at 90-degree bend, now she's got much more space, much more relaxation. So I would like to erase the cue of elbows in. You can see very clearly with me as well, when I go elbows in, my shoulders round and pinch. And part of this is because the arm bones, when in a resting anatomical position, are not squeezed next to the body. In fact, anatomically, the arm bones rest slightly forward of the rib cage because the shoulder blade in its resting position is in scapula protraction, which is resting on the outer rib cage on the back side. The arm bones rotating externally, anatomical position, are slightly in front of me. From here, I can get my spine to lift, knit the bottom ribs, and this is my actual standing position, which we'll talk about in Tadasana.